can.
Okay. I'm going on. I'm not sending you the same one, right? I'm sending different
Yeah,
ones.
yeah. We're gonna start from where you left
Just
off.
keep going off. Okay. All right. I'm going to just continue where I was.
Yeah. All right. Let
Okay.
me.
What picture do you have up now?
Nothing yet. Let me introduce you real quick.
Oh, sorry.
Welcome back, you guys. I hope you're all just tapping in and tuning back in from where we left off. Um, we are back. Claire's back with us. We had a little bit of technical difficulties, but we're back. And Claire's going to start where she left off. So if you're just tuning in for the first time, we did a live right before this. So if you just scroll back, you can find the other live, part one. Now we're going to start part two of Hawaii, the mountaintops of Lemuria, presented by the amazing Claire Bajo, spiritual realtor. So Claire, thank you for being here. Sorry about the little mix-up, technical difficulties, but go right ahead. We're here with you now, and we're tuned in and we're listening.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. Well, sorry for the interruptions, and um, give Sakshi any questions you may have so we can address it along the way since we're kind of skipping around. So, Sakshi, what picture do you have up on your screen for?
So I have Pyramid Rock in Kaneohe.
Okay. So, as I mentioned in the last recording, there are pyramids all over the islands, of course, all over the world. But I was just searching for pyramids in Hawaii and came across a bunch of different types of pyramids. This one is actually where I grew up. There's a military base on the other side of Kaneohe Bay, and on the eastern point of the military base is this rock, Pyramid Rock. And if you notice at the top of this rock, there's a power storage facility. So the military is actually milking free energy off of the pyramid.
Wow.
So that's that's a revelation.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Supposedly, every military base is chosen based on the energy of either there's a vortex or a portal or entrances to a tunnel or power ley line, monatomic gold, whatever power points there may be. This is how they choose a location for a military base. And I believe they start, drilling like underground tunnel systems and may even tap into what's currently there. I did hear that Hawaii does have a tunnel system that connects all of the tunnels, all of the islands. And so hopefully I'll be able to tell you about that story a little later. But my mom had told me that all the islands are connected by a tunnel system, and that shark men would travel through these tunnels. And this is how she found out, because our ancestors was a shark god. So anyways, hopefully that story will come up. If it doesn't, remind me and I'll tell you the story. But these pyramids are located all over the islands. And the next picture that I sent Sakshi, which, do you have it up? It's a bunch of different
Several different
pyramids.
Yeah.
Haleakala and a
Yes.
Hawaiian pyramid.
Yes.
Okay, I actually saw that pyramid when I went to Oahu last month.
That's pretty incredible, actually. Wow.
Yeah. Some pyramids don't have like four sides, but I believe that there are tunnel systems at certain ley lines of a pyramid that may provide like a tunnel opening or some kind of energy there. So And I don't know if I'd shown you this, but I did see one on the top of Mount Hualalai a couple months ago. So it's interesting, but we'll see if we can get to it. Okay, now I'm gonna send you the next picture, and this is in Oahu, and it's underwater. It says Waikiki, Oahu.
Okay. I got you.
And
It's
then
up.
the
It's up.
next, okay. So a lot of pyramids are buried, and a lot of pyramids are hidden. This one looks like an altar, um, and maybe part of a big complex because there's a couple other buildings there. But anyway, Atlantic Submarine goes to take their tours over there, so you can see little, you know, communities of fish and fish sea life there. So they don't really look like the Hawaiian architecture. Hawaiians didn't build like that, you know, 2 and 3 story complexes. So that leads me to believe that it's not Hawaiian. And then if you look at the front building, those big plates, they look flat and they have some kind of like, I don't know if they're keystone corners or keystone edges, but they look very intricately carved. So that to me is another sign of very high technology civilization, and it existed either, you know, before or after the Hawaiian civilization. But the Hawaiian civilization may be a remnant of Mu when the flood happened. And then there were people that were stuck on different islands that eventually like migrated. Okay, so what's the next? Oops, I already sent them to you. So we're going down to the Hawaiian Islands, Sacred Places and Mysteries of Mu.
Did you send it to me yet?
Mm-hmm. Twice.
Okay. Okay, good. I got it up there.
Okay. So as you see this map, there's some parts that are white, particularly on the Big Island of Hawaii and a little part of Maui on the northwest side. Or excuse me, southwest side of Maui. Okay, so let's go on to the next slide, which is the Big Island.
Got you. It's on there.
Okay, so I point to the white in the water. That's the monatomic gold. They found this white powdery substance in the pyramids in Egypt at the altar. And in certain royal tombs that had these vases of this white powdery substance. And when they researched it, it was monatomic gold element that it looks like either they would mix with water or they would take it as a powder, and it gave them a type of like enlightened energy or the ability to see a little bit more psychically. And so I understood from research, and you can check all of the information that I'm telling you. I got most of it on YouTube. Though nowadays the YouTuber owner has regulated what kind of information is out there, and I believe they may have taken down the information that I was able to study. But there were 2 physicists that I studied. One, Richard Hoagland, who was the consultant to Walter Cronkite, and the other one was David Wilcock, who has studied the Quetzalcoatl and a lot of the information of the New Age. So let's see. So both of them said that the Big Island is very much set up in the ley line energy where they built the Washington D.C. monuments on. So in essence, they replicated what we have in Hawaii as a natural ley line geometry on the world, on the globe. So that was one element. The Big Island of Hawaii was also pointed out to have these other features. This white monatomic gold, as you saw just a tiny little bit on Maui, the only other place that you could get it was in the Euphrates River, which may have been where they got the monatomic gold that they supplied the pyramids and the civilization of Egypt for. Also, on this map, you see 19.47 degree power ley line. On every planet at this ley line, there's either a storm, vortex, rings. It's like the Tropic of Cancer, where the equator is, and a certain latitude above and below the equator have this magnetic energy. And so on every planet of this ley line, there's some power point. On this planet, we have the volcano. So Kilauea volcano is part of this energy ley line of the planet. So again, what I was telling Sakshi was, when you come close to this ley line and any of the other 10 spokes that go around the world of ley line power, your thoughts are magnified. And more so, your heart energy, your feelings are magnified. So you may think a thought, but the thought is thinking you. And when you see that the thought is thinking you, you try to transmute your thoughts into feelings so that you can feel your way into living instead of thinking your way into living. And then your world totally like rocks. Like how Sakshi found his property. He has an element of consciousness on this ley line. So knowing that energy and then being able to have a goal will help you streamline finding it. So like I was telling Sakshi, sometimes you think the thought, but the thought's thinking you. I think the property called Sakshi to it, and it was part of the harmony of everything working out for him. So This is another reason why I do this as a spiritual realtor, is because when Lemurians are called home, it always works out for them. And so you have to trust your intuition and follow your heart in all your steps, because this is how you get to fulfill your soul's destiny, or maybe karma, or is it dharma, in this lifetime. So I try to kind of quicken that process of finding out where you're supposed to be or what your soul's purpose is, and placing you there so that you can prosper. And then when you prosper others, because they see your example of how you lived, and they want to follow that. So we're kind of like become examples when you take your place as a Lemurian in Lemuria or Hawaii, so to speak. So, okay. Also, there are James Churchward I was speaking about, and there are some other authors. They talk about the capital city of Lemuria being called Amakua. And on this island, we have what's called the Hamakua Coast. So we know that the power is hidden in the name. Sometimes they even change the name. Like on this island, they have a couple of places called Kamuela and Honomu. Those are still remnants of ancient Lemuria, or the continent of Mu. And now they changed Kamuela to Waimea. So you no longer are looking for the commonality of Mu. Let's see. Also, Mauna Kea is the tallest mountain in the world, from seafloor to mountaintop. The seafloor, where the ocean and the land meet is at about 13,000 feet from the seafloor. So up another 13 or 14,000 is the top of the world, basically, top of Mauna Kea. And Sakshi, I don't know, have you ever been up there?
Mauna Kea?
Yes.
Yes, I have. Yes.
Okay.
It's
As you
amazing. I
know,
mean, it's like
it's
it's
magical.
unreal. It really is like going up to another planet, another dimension almost. I mean, it feels almost like going up there. You're like on Mars or the moon, and then once you're up there, it feels like yeah, you're like I don't know. It feels like another planet. It's weird.
There's a lot of phenomena that takes place. And every time I've gone up there, I've always had like different experiences. But this one night that I went up, and this was for 10, 10, 10 at 10 p.m. I went up to Mauna Kea by myself, and it was the craziest thing I've ever done in my whole life. Took my four-wheel drive up there, lost a couple truck parts along the way, but I found them on the way back, so I was really grateful about that. But um, when I went up there, I was really scared. No one was up there. It was pitch black. And I was scared. So I locked my truck doors, and I took up two Lemurian sea crystals and I put them on my lap. And I'm looking out of my windshield, and I see stars line up in a row and then light up simultaneously in a row, go down and up. And I'm like, did I just see that? Like, am I hallucinating? And then out of the passenger side of the truck, two white illuminated, look like fairies. You know how fairies fly, like kind of like, they're not like straight, they fly like sporadically. And so they were flying, they flew toward me through to, where the crystals were residing, descended, and then like disappeared into the crystals. And I was like, oh my gosh, like they had been like anointed, right? So it was really like there was so much stuff I couldn't explain, but I saw it. So it really does have a lot of power up there. There was a Hawaiian teacher called Hale Makua, and he went up into one of the craters of that Mauna or mountain. And he said as soon as he went into the crater, the clouds hovered covered him with the cloud cover, and started to speak with him and tell him like just information. And I also felt that energy too when I went to the heiau or structure altar just across the street from the visitor center on the other side of the street. My friend had wanted to take her husband's remains up and release them into the air. And so she asked me to go up and say a prayer. So we hiked up to that mountain, and she said her prayers, and she asked me to say a prayer. And I'm just really new at the whole praying in public part. I'm spiritual, but it's mostly just my little whispers and my little, being grateful in my own little corner. So she said, well, okay, it's your turn to speak, sir. So I said, okay, God, tell me what to say. And all of a sudden, the clouds came upon us and covered us, and I felt like it lifted me, and as if there were like guards at the gate, like they were holding me together. We were all together saying this, and I said, oh, thank you, guardians of the air and the sky, and started to say my invocation. Thank you so much for being here to receive the spirit of Keith and the remains. And thank you for being here to guide him. And I went on, and my friend Anella is there, and she feels this energy upon us. Like it feels like there's beings around us. And so I just start to continue to say my prayer, and then it subsides. The clouds lift, and then she goes on and takes the ashes and flies it up in the air, and it just took off, and it looked like the the energy of the clouds in the air lifted it and just like received it. It was,
Whoa.
it gives me goosebumps to this day, but just so much sacred experiences up there. I even had one where I went to take up an offering, and I wanted to take up some water from the ocean. I figured Poliahu, the snow goddess, she's never seen the salt before, you know, or felt salt water. So I said, I'm going to take it up. But when I went up there, I forgot. And so I'm telling my girlfriend, Heart Moon, I forgot the water. And as I'm talking to her, I'm sobbing. And I'm talking to her like I'm talking to you. Oh my gosh, I wish I brought it. Sobbing. And then I realized she was taking the salt water from me and giving it to herself as an offering. So I just thought,
Wow.
oh, this is way just so above, you know. And there's so much places like that here that will give you that energy. But sacred sites like the top of Mauna Kea are one of the places that you want to go to feel that energy, that ancient sacred energy.
Well, Claire, like you were talking about the pyramids, right? And obviously, there's some uh, pyramids around the islands because some of those pictures, I mean, make it pretty obvious. And when you think about like the mound culture all over like North America, it's very similar, right? As a pyramid. But don't you think like Hawaii, the Big Island, is in a sense like a pyramid itself? So going and doing that pilgrimage to the top of Mauna Kea is almost like ascending to the top of the pyramid. It's like the Great Pyramid of Giza, only it's the Great Pyramid of
Of the earth.
yeah, Mu, of the earth, right? Of Gaia.
Well, it's so ancient. And, you know, this is another reason why we protect, you know, they call them protectors now instead of protesters, right? Because actually, at the bottom of Mauna Kea is the Temple of Rejuvenation, which is what they mention in some of the ancient texts of Lemuria. So when you think about TNT wanting to build their telescopes up there, they have a hidden agenda, and that's to tap into that ancient sacred energy for themselves.
Right.
So this is why when we look at our government, you know, being able to, you know, making sacred places or preserving sacred places, we want to make sure that they're doing it for us and not for them. They work for us, so we want to make sure. So this is another reason why the Hawaiians and of course a lot of the indigenous cultures got together and to protect this mountain, because there is a sacred waters, monatomic gold element, and you might be able to experience that water at Lake Waiau. Have you ever been to Lake Waiau?
I was just about to ask you about that. It's the lake at the top of Mauna Kea, right? The little lake bed there.
Yes. It's a lake that never freezes. It was turned into a pond for a long time. Sometimes it'll be there and it'll be like a turquoise blue color. Sometimes it's there and it's a little bit greener. So it's interesting how the water changes there. But I did know someone who worked for the DLNR, and he could trek around the Mauna Kea area, and he found some springs all along that, maybe just below where the lake is, and he could drink the water. So there's a lot of sacred water all around Mauna Kea, and this is why we want to go to protect her and our water, you know, our drinking water.
Right.
On the island of Kauai, in Kapa'a, there's a heiau or an altar complex built for the goddess Poliahu, who is the snow goddess of Mauna Kea. And that tells me that Kauai and Hawaii may have been one continent at some point, before, and may have been connected. Because why would Kauai, the farthest island from the Big Island, have a heiau of the Big Island, right? So to me,
Right.
that makes sense.
That does make sense.
Yeah,
You know, what's also interesting about, you know, Mauna Kea being this like mountain of ascension, right? Like the Great Pyramid of Giza, it's 33,000 feet high in elevation, right? And it's almost like an association with like the 33 um, spinal columns, the three and the 33 degrees of like initiation and
Freemason. Yeah.
secret societies and mystical
Hmm.
schools like that. And
Yeah.
33 is like the year that Jesus like supposedly ascended.
Came back and
Right. He had
right.
his, so it's like and then these I heard in Pila's book Secrets and Mysteries of Hawaii that the islands were similar to each island was like considered like a temple of initiation. So the kahunas would go to the different islands and they would go to specific places and like it was like different initiations would take place at different vortexes, and obviously like Mauna Kea was one of the main pilgrimage spots, right? And you went for that like 33-degree ascension. I'm thinking, yeah.
Exactly. Well, in studying Freemasonry, I believe that they took the information from Lemuria and turned it upside down.
Hmm.
So 33 means 6, but the opposite might mean 9. And so when I started my rituals in the 999 elements, I noticed it manifests a little bit faster and 999s instead of 6 6s. So um, I believe that shape is also like a spiral, like Fibonacci. And so even though it's 33, it may, have other like numerology going into the 6, which is, spiral. And
Well,
so,
yeah, Nikola
but
Tesla talked about the 369 pattern.
correct,
So obviously 33, 66, 99 are correlated, you know, for sure.
correct, yes. And our current government, well, it's dissolving now, but the Freemason energy that they had used against us is now being used for us. And so every time we see something that we don't like, we have to do the opposite of that, because that changes the energy of where we and this earth had been programmed to, what do we call it, react to. So now, that this information is coming forward, we want to use it to our benefit, which is that exactly 33. It would be, well, it may still be 33 because there is power in numbers, but you use it to serve you. It is, like you said, an initiation level where you are open and then the world opens to you. So I totally believe in
Yeah,
all of that.
for sure. I
Though
didn't.
the darkness of what they've done to this world is now coming to the surface.
Hmm.
Um, I believe the information about Lemuria is also coming to the surface. So I'm
Hmm.
glad that you're sharing this because you really know a lot about, the ancient history just by studying what you're studying, and your Hindu texts and, the Tantra, the Kundalini, and all that stuff. It's all relative. Like you said, the 33, um, is it the spinal
Yeah, we have
parts,
33
lumbar?
yeah, spinal columns, you know, 33
Yeah,
spinal
bones,
nerves in the spinal
nerves.
column.
Okay. Yeah. So it's really interesting how a lot of the information correlates to, um, things that are just hidden right under our nose.
One more question about
But
the
yeah,
monatomic gold.
yes,
Um, you mentioned, well, when you first started talking about it, I was thinking like, oh wow, you know, the ancient Egyptians used to also take it in a powdered form, right? And then you said that it was possible that the Egyptians were sourcing it from Hawaii even. Like, could you elaborate on that maybe a little?
So, according to my research from Richard Hoagland and David Wilcock, there were two places in the world that you could get it. One was in Hawaii, particularly the Big Island, but as you saw, there's some in Maui, or the Euphrates River. I believe that they may have gotten the monatomic gold at the time from the Euphrates River. I believe it's drying up now in that area, but as you can see, is particularly on this island, wherever you see the turquoise waters, that is the area where the fresh water seeps out of the shoreline. And the alchemy of the fresh water mixing with the salt water in our bodies creates that monatomic gold. What do you call it? It rejuvenates our skin cells, upgrades our DNA, and opens our pineal gland. I believe they may have been able to dehydrate the water here, but at the time, I don't think in the Hawaiian culture, I don't know if they knew that. However, I do know that King Kamehameha, because he chose Kailua Kona as the capital city where he would live near the ocean, he knew that fresh water seeped out of the shoreline because there's no rivers on the west side of the island. And so we had to get this water from the ocean.
Wow.
And recently I was just told those ipu gourds that the Hawaiians use, hollowed out gourds that they use for the hula, the dance.
Yeah.
They would take that underwater and they would go and fill this ipu or the gourd up at the spring underwater. And this is how they would get fresh water at the shoreline. So
Wow.
they were highly aware of, fresh water and how to live near the ocean because you can't drink salt water. But with this monatomic element, and as you can see in places, I may have a picture coming out of Kipolo. But anyways, I sent you a couple of other pictures. What picture do you have up right now?
Okay, I have the last picture. Let's see.
Monatomic gold in the brackish waters of West Hawaii.
Okay, 1 second. Oh, now I see him. All right, now I'm showing. It looks like the chief.
Okay, King Kamehameha.
King Kamehameha, yeah.
So as you can see, he lived at the shoreline, and he knew that he could drink the water because look at how prosperous they are there.
Wow.
And he also raised his children along the shoreline here of from Kailua to Keaho. So there's a lot of phenomena that takes place between Kona and Keaho. And I don't know if I covered it in here, but some sacred sites that I have legends of that show, like you said, certain vortex areas where they go to make initiations. One of the initiations is at this place where King Kameha's residence was. And that fresh water is where Dr. Emoto, Masaru Emoto, who was the scientist that froze thoughts in water.
That's right.
And he studied the water and noticed that the words that were loving had beautiful, snowflake type of sacred geometry. And the energy of the words that were not positive would have very jagged and uneven and very jagged, rough looking designs in them. So anyway, this area where King Kamehameha resided is where Dr. Imoto went to bless the waters and do Ho'oponopono.
Right.
Ho'oponopono is one of the what do you call it? We call it the way of making things right, or I call it the law of making things right. And it's the statement of saying, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, and thank you. And when you use the words of that nature, you automatically heal your world. And so Dr. Imoto went to these areas and said the Ho'oponopono in the water so that he could give his, what do you call it, peace, his, when you say your last words, he would, he did that to these places.
That's cool. I'm showing them a picture of the crystals right now.
Oh, where's the crystals?
Like, it's not an image that you shared. It's
Okay, good.
one of the Dr. Emoto's photographs
cool.
of like the crystalline water.
Yes. Well, we can skip a couple of these pictures to this one here.
Now I'm at the Iron Man start or Kailua Pier.
Yeah, that's another place where the monatomic is. But let me show you this. If you want to post that one, that's Hulihe'e Palace. And I have a video on YouTube. You can grab it if you want to show it. But I took a couple of snapshots. Can you see it?
Hold on. I'm trying to pull it up.
Okay.
There we go. Hulihe'e's Palace.
Palace, yeah. King Kamehameha Day 2019. So this picture is at Hulihe'e Palace looking toward Kailua Pier. On this day, I went and jumped it at the Kailua Pier where the Iron Man start is, and then walked out to meet my friends at the palace. And I didn't dry off. I didn't have a towel. I just figured I'd dry off when I was walking. And it was a beautiful day, as you can see. The canoe paddlers were just, winning, and they put the finish line right in town, so you can start screaming. Everybody in town is screaming, and it's just such a great day. They had just had the parade, the King Kamehameha Day. And I don't know if you've ever been to a parade, Sakshi, but the King Kamehameha Day is one of the most amazing days because they bring the horses. And on this particular day, I'd never sat at the palace before. I'm Hawaiian, and I never sat at the palace. I didn't know that they give gifts when they're passing the palace, like a ceremony. I didn't know. I just thought it was like a pomp and circumstance thing, but it's actually a ceremony that we're watching. And one of the things that intrigued me was watching them give the gift, and then all the horses bowed at the same time. And it just I just went, oh my gosh, I didn't realize it was a ceremony. I just thought it was like a commercial thing, right?
Wow.
So I'm really in awe of this gratefulness. And as you can see, I'm kind of like a white girl in a brown skinned body. I didn't come across this information through the Hawaiians. I was actually studying Wicca and came across the information about the aloha spirit and the hula. And that's where I started studying Hawaii. Like, oh my gosh, my culture had these secrets all along that I didn't know. So this is where I started studying Hawaii itself and its power. So anyway, I'm at this palace, and right when I get to my friends, I look out and I get this overwhelming sensation of, oh my gosh, it feels like a dream. Like it felt like I was in a dream world. Everything was so surreal. Like it almost just slowed down for a few seconds, like slow-mo. And I said, thank you, God, for this blessings of this day and this beauty that I feel. And then I went to do a Facebook Live. And as I filmed the canoe paddlers coming across the finish line, I saw these rainbow prisms, something that you would see if you put a crystal up and had it reflected through had the sun reflected through the crystal into the ocean, or when you see a sun reflected into a crystal in a rainbow prism that goes around a room, something like that, right? That's what it looks like to me. And I was thinking, how is it creating a kaleidoscope with me in it? I didn't know it was me at the time. I was just filming it, just shown in the screen. So I stayed there for a couple minutes and I'm like, what is this rainbow, energy? And every time the waves came in, the prisms changed. Well, I go to do a panorama around toward the palace and it gets brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter. And I see full-on kaleidoscopes moving until I go back toward the ocean, and then it goes back to the minimal, where the waves were coming in. And so I posted it on Facebook. Must have had like 5,000 views by now, but no one could tell me what it was until one day my friend Kahaya showed me a picture of a big crystal, citrine, and the person on the video was holding it to her side, and back down below was the cliff and the ocean. Kind of looks like Kauai, how you would see like a long white sand beach and the waves coming in, and then the crystal and a rock, cliff. And through the crystal, you could see the waves creating this rainbow prisms. So I'm like, is that what that was? Like, is the work that I'm doing on myself these prisms? And I don't know if I had told you this part, but this is the other part of the chapter that I talk about the transmutation and my practice of being able to turning my body into crystalline energy so that I can get into the 5D energy per se. Because I heard that for the golden age, you need to be lighter than a 3D physicality. You need to have your spiritual strength stronger in the 5D element. So I started doing these spiritual practices and stuff, and I believe this is what the the energy, the work is that I've done. So okay, how you doing for time, huh?
What's that?
How are you doing?
Amazing. I have several questions.
Okay, good.
I don't know, where do you have more to present? Any more?
Yeah, but I can stop. I mean, it's there's a lot of pictures, but a lot of it I may have already spoken about. Really, I'm just showing you where the monatomic gold is, but I can show you the ley line, where the ley line is.
Cool. Yeah.
So when people come to Hawaii, they can
share whatever you like, and whenever you're ready, I have a couple questions for you.
Yeah. Shoot them off.
Well, you ready for questions?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, the first one I had was you mentioned omiyage in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
What was that about?
So omiyage is a Japanese custom of giving a gift before the gift is given. I'm not sure how I talked about it being in the Bible, but hold on, let me go back to the where I told you about it and see what it says.
Said something about the gift, about gift giving in the Bible, maybe.
Well, I forget what it was about, but I do know that tithing is relative to omiyage and ho'okupu, because tithing is like paying it forward. And during this whole COVID thing, I learned omiyage a little bit more because since we were not physically together, there's still an energy that creates. And so through omiyage, I was able to get more done because I was giving, instead of giving to a church, I was giving to like restaurant servers and people who like helped me and, you know, clients or customers or just, you know, people that were of service to um, you know, the public. I tithe to them, and that is also an energy of omiyage. I don't know if I shared it as being mentioned in the Bible because it's a Japanese custom,
No, no,
and
you didn't say
oh,
like you didn't say omiyage per se was mentioned in the Bible. I think you just were making a reference to it being found, that practice, similar practice.
I would say the practice does go back to the Bible because the energy of tithing is an ancient practice. Um, in the times of Lemuria, we didn't have a slave currency that we have now. This slave currency only happened from like the early 1900s when they sunk the Titanic. So before we had like civilization, there was no money. However, what my dad taught me, and my dad was a banker, was that energy is currency. So in Hawaii, we learned that food was our currency because we didn't have dollar bills. So we would take food, mangoes, papayas, you know, whatever we had in our yard, avocados, bananas, we'd take it to the neighbor. And then the neighbor would say, "Oh my gosh, here's some, you know, teriyaki meat we just made," and or you know, some kind of like food or fruit, or we went to pick, you know, limo, and or we're having a luau, and you know, to come, and it was always an invitation for a relationship. And so I teach my clients now, since this fiat currency is going to be dissolved soon. And I was telling you about this part, that recently Trump has been saying statements about the golden age. And I just learned today that India, Africa, there's some other countries, I think it's Venezuela, Uruguay, Honduras, all of these nations or countries are looking to get into the golden age, what do you call it, currency, which is kind of like a financial freedom. They call it like Jubilee, the golden age Jubilee. And so we're coming to a time where our currency is changing. And this again takes me back to this 5D energy of turning your body into a crystalline, because the more you can create your body as a living currency, the more powerful you will be moving forward. And this is an unseen energy that is not something that can be seen with the physical eye. But the miracles that I receive, like when you can say that you go through town and get all green lights, that's a form of currency. And when you go and you get discounts at your favorite market, or you know, you're going there just when someone's leaving and you get a first in line parking spot, or you're late and you go to a meeting and you just happen to meet someone that was closer to you meeting your goal than the actual meeting. Those are all signs of like synchronicity and the energy of currency working in your favor. So it's a little bit deeper than the omiyage, but
Yeah. No, I get
your
that.
omiyage is like the gift of yourself, the gift
Beautiful.
of the thought. Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. So, probably the parallel in the Bible would be, tithing or doing some sort of like first harvest offering to the deity, or even incense offering, or even, as you would say, as you just said, like doing a vow or committing yourself. You know what I mean? Like the Nazarite vow, for example, would be turning yourself into that offering by making your life a sacrament. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
that gets into my
Absolutely.
next question.
Mhm.
You mentioned Jesus and Mary in Hawaii.
Mhm.
Maybe you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay, let me just see if I can send you the information that I got it from. Oh boy, I don't know if you can see this here. Just a second. Let me just blow this up. Oops, sorry. Okay, I don't know if you're missing.
You send me a picture?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the picture is just of I sent you a bunch of pictures, but the last picture I sent was from the Summit Lighthouse Ascended Master Free Encyclopedia. And I'll just read it here. I don't know if you can see it yet, but it says, Peace and aloha are the Elohim of the sixth ray, the purple and gold ray, of peace, brotherhood, the true ministration of the Christ, and the desire to be in the service of God and man through the mastery of the Christ consciousness. From their temple of peace, located in the etheric realms over the Hawaiian Islands, they radiate ribbons of cosmic Christ, peace over the entire planet as a network of cosmic Christ consciousness. Peace and aloha focus both the gold and the purple flames as the perfect balance of the masculine and feminine aspects of peace. Mighty Cosmos secret rays are focused in their retreat. Souls who are to embody the six ray virtues of peace, ministration, and service on behalf of all life study for a time at the Temple of Peace in preparation for their mission. Jesus studied at this retreat, and the Elohim peace has revealed that many of the sayings of Christ Jesus came from him. He said that Jesus learned these sayings, as a disciple of the Elohim peace long before he took incarnation to be the Prince of Peace.
Wow.
And I do believe
Wow.
the statement that Jesus says, give God the desires of your heart, and God will give you all that your heart desires. What I learned in this process of giving omiyake is that if I gave you $10 trillion, Sakshi, then any amount of that little part that I want for you comes through me. And so it would benefit us to give what we love for ourselves, to give that to others. And this is what I love about the Hawaiian culture is every time you see a auntie or anybody, you hug them and they say, hey, how's it going? And then you tell them, oh, this thing is going on. And they go, oh, I hope everything goes well. I hope your mom heals, or I hope good wishes. And this is the energy that I think Jesus was saying. When you give your heart's desire, God gives you the desires of your heart. So on my next other chapter of topic, when we talk about manifesting, I will tell you how I manifested 99,000 in my bank account from visualizing 999,999,999 in my bank account and giving others my tithing. Or now, because I understand this law of tithing, not just from my dad and how he was so generous, but how I noticed that when I give more than 10%, more than 20%, more than 25%, more than that comes back to me. So the more I give, the more is given to me. There are certain rituals that I do in giving, but for the most part, when you understand this energy, when you give something, you understand that it's not always given from the person that you give it to. And so giving freely is what you want to do, which is what Jesus is telling us. Give God the desires of your heart. So you give it all, you put it in the omiyage, you leave it at the altar, good or not so good. You leave that energy at the altar and you say, thank you so much, God, for taking care of this and for loving my family and taking care of everyone's health and prospering everyone. Put that in the energy, giving it to the altar. And then you walk away and a phone call comes and says, hey, help me out. And you go and you help them. And then they go, oh my gosh, can I pay you to stay here at this beautiful, place to live for free? And I pay you and you take care of my place. And it's like royal grounds. I mean, this is how God works. It's not always in the way that you think. And so this is why you have to follow your intuition. Because like, even with real estate, I say, if someone tells you about this place and you have this magical experience and then they say, stay here a while, that was the way that you got the property. So it's not limited to how I present it to you. I say, be open to however God gives it to you your way, because that's how you're manifesting it. So
Beautiful. All right. Give us a sort of like a fairy tale version, or maybe not a fairy tale version, just like a short story form version of what life was like at, say, the height of Mu, like when the, like, let's say the life of the emperor and maybe say the life of a normal citizen. What would it have been like?
So I would say I'm going to send you a picture because it may help to understand. And of course, this may even go back deeper than, of course, the Hawaiian complex. I believe the Hawaiian complexes, that we see today are remnants from ancient Mu, but they're an integration because the Hawaiian people did believe in mermaids, giants, shape-shifting shark men. There were different entities like Menehune and dwarfs. And so I believe that Mu or Lemuria were like, say, for instance, Bigfoot. Bigfoot may have been a giant genetic modification because at the time, both Lemuria and Atlantis were genetically modifying species. And that's why we have like people like Bigfoot, which is half man, half bear. We're actually an alien species of half human, half alien. We have a God particle, but then you have mermaids who are half mermaid, half human.
Wow.
So in the days of Lemuria, we would have had an integration of metaphysical and physical beings. I sent you a picture of how Wahine complex at Kailua.
Yeah, it's up here.
Okay. So there's an ancient spring at the bottom of this, I'd call that a ziggurat. How Wahine was a mermaid who governed the area of Kailua on Oahu. And the Menehune and the Hawaiians worked together to farm the land. And the tradition and the customs, especially, it was all over the islands, but anywhere where there resided a what do you call it, like a mermaid or a giant or some kind of half human, half like other type of species, not human like us, like alien, we would serve them. And so in this particular case, and of course you'll see at the Mauna Lani fish ponds, that there were half human, half beast that reside there. I believe that was a bridge when Lemuria was starting to merge with the physical nature of the earth and like Hawaii and the indigenous people. So at one point, they all lived in harmony together. And the ritual, when you lived in a community like this, was that you always served the god or goddess first. And then, so what we would call a luau or a feast, the ritual was always that you gave the platter to the mermaid or the deity, and then the rest of the community could eat. On one case, on this island, they forgot to feed the mermaid, and she ate a couple people in the process. So it was living with man and beast together would sometimes cause a conflict, and this may be why they went into a 5D energy, or that they chose to disappear from the earth at this time, because there was too much, I don't know if it was disrespect or not enough preserving the ritual that caused the conflict between the like the deities and the workers. But as we can see, they're no longer here. They just have remnants. However, there are places like in the like Micronesia, they have a place called Non Madol, and that place is a place, I believe, like places in Hawaii, where you don't want to be at night, because an energy comes over the place and it has a tendency to like kill people or people disappear. It may be more of a like a 5D energy now, but for the most part, it's not a. These sacred sites are not places where you go to at night, because this is where the veil is lifted, and you know things can sometimes happen.
Wow. Oh, that. So that actually kind of segues into my next question about Kamehameha, King Kamehameha, and the, there's, the idea that the royal families were related to the gods. They were descendants of the gods themselves, and like there's stories of like Lono being like this kind of tall giant, and Kamehameha's family were said to be like a bunch of giants, and like maybe Kamehameha was like shorter than his ancestors, even like, but he was still like something like 10 feet tall or 9 feet tall or something like that. I don't remember exactly, but um, what do you think about that? Like the royal families of Hawaii being related to maybe Lono and the giant connection there.
So I think there's two topics here. One is Lono. Lono in the Hawaiian culture is a white guy, because they mistook Captain Cook for Lono.
Right.
And when he arrived, that's why they thought he was a god, right? Because Lono said that he would return. I believe that Lono may have been Jesus, who visited in the times of the 13 to 33 missing parts of the Bible that they didn't want people to know. So that makes sense to me. Lono was a white guy. The second part was that King Kamehameha was actually half Tahitian, half Hawaiian. Tahiti means the giant, and there were giants in Tahiti. That's why they called it Tahiti. I sent you a picture of Olovalu on Maui. And there's a couple of stories about this place in Olovalu, which is at the back valley of Iao Valley, which is a very sacred valley. there's a story that talks about the Smithsonian going to Maui and being shown these bones that were upwards of 17 to 20 feet, and the female was 20 to 25 feet. I believe they took the bones and took them back to the Smithsonian, never to be seen again. However, I did hear that those bones were white people with red hair. So again, I believe the Lemurians were a mix of people, but that there were white giants and, you know, different types of like species. So we think that Tahiti, or even the Hawaiians may have been a mix of Tahitian and Menehune, or Hawaiian and Menehune. Before it wasn't King Kamehameha, it was another guy. His name was Pa'u or something. He came from Tahiti. He was a mean person. He came to Hawaii, and the people were so loving and peaceful. He said, I'm going to go back to Tahiti and bring all my warriors and overtake this place, which is what he did. And then, of course, King Kamehameha was prophesied to be born. And they tried to kill him, very similar to how they tried to kill Jesus, right? Oh, no. Was it Moses? The one where somebody had to send him down?
Both of them, Moses and Jesus.
Okay. They must have some kind of ritual of killing the babies, because they're still doing it to this day. But supposedly, King Kamehameha was born in a canoe and landed at the area where I was talking about my Lemurian seed crystal starting to activate, and they tried to kill him from there. He went into hiding into the valleys of Pololu, between Pololu and Waipio Valley, and that's where he was born and raised and trained. And I believe they have portals and vortexes from ancient Mu, along with those buried archaeological bones from ancient history, buried in the valleys there where King Kamehameha was raised. So back to your question about King Kamehameha. King Kamehameha was actually a mean person. He killed a lot of his family to say, all the islands are mine. He pushed most of his family off the cliff in Oahu, and killed 144,000 of his own family here on this island. So I don't really know what the energy was. However, I will say that there is a legend of King Kamehameha ruling. His rulership changed when he went to conquer one of the places around the island, and a fisherman didn't know who he was and like whacked him over the head, and he said, why'd you hit me? And the guy said, well, you're coming to like kill our family, why wouldn't I hit you? And he said, oh, I see, and understood that he created that violence that he should no longer do to his own family, his own people. So it was the law of the splintered paddle, and this is where peace came from. He may have gotten it from the monatomic gold where he was living that awakened him to his karma. So that may also be where he became consciously aware of his reality if he kept up with this violence. And so in his older ages, he changed. But did that answer your question about the...
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry.
No, that's good. Another question. So you said you think Lono is Jesus. That's an interesting theory, and it's similar to an idea that I have. But what do you think about Lono and Shiva being like parallel? You ever thought about that?
Well, all I know from the Hawaiian, history was that they expected a white guy to return. I believe Shiva was a blue guy, right? I think he was a blue being.
Sure.
And I have seen blue beings before. I believe that Shiva was a deity. He was, I think Shiva may have been one of the Elohim
Well,
because he came from the sky.
here's the thing about the Hindu tradition is that like they have many avatars, so Shiva could appear, like any color, and he sometimes did appear in different colors. But what I was getting at mainly is like, for like Krishna is blue also, but he also comes as Ram, and Ram is green, right? And he also comes as Chaitanya, which is golden. So I'm saying they switch around a lot, so it's hard to like pinpoint that specifically. But what I'm more getting at is like in Hinduism, there's like a trinity, right? There's like Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu. And in the same way, in Hawaii, there's kind of like a trinity in a way of the three main gods. And so, what I'm wondering is if, like Vishnu, he kind of takes like he's like the solar deity, he's like the maintainer. Um, Brahma is like the creator, and then Shiva's more like the lunar deity, and he's like the destroyer, but he's like the cosmic dancer. He's like the Jesus archetype basically. Shiva would be the Jesus archetype for Hinduism. So I'm wondering if Lono, in that same Trinitarian kind of view, what do you think about that?
I definitely think that Lono was part of the Trinity. It was Lono, Ku, and I think Ku was the goddess of war, but Lono was like the god of peace, and I think he controlled like the waters. But when you talk about aloha, I believe that's like the living waters, and that was us, our living, breathing waters. And so that makes sense that Lono would be more of the peaceful deity, because I think the other one was Ku, and then the other one was nature, I think.
Right.
But Lono, I think, was the one of water. I'm not that familiar with the Hawaiian culture because I kind of like shunned the Hawaiian culture when I was growing up. I got slapped by a hula teacher when I was in kindergarten, and I just like despised the Hawaiian people after that until I came across, in my second divorce, coming across Wicca and being introduced back into the alchemy of the Hawaiian culture and the aloha spirit. So forgive me for not knowing all of the Hawaiian stories, because I came across this through the back door.
Wow, wow. That's fascinating. It's kind of a beautiful full circle, I guess, maybe, right?
Well, when I found out that Jesus studied here in Hawaii, there's so many Hawaiians that love Jesus so much. And I believe that's because he was here. And he may also have been the deity of the Middle East, right? There's a guy, Quetzalcoatl.
Right.
That guy was also a red-headed, like, fire serpent.
Right.
And they refer to a white guy as like they call it kuamo'o, and that's fire serpent. But we don't have dragons here. We don't have snakes here in Hawaii. So how come there's so many places called kuamo'o? So
he was he was the Serpent King.
He was a Serpent King, exactly.
Right.
And he may have traveled. I think he had extraterrestrial technology, because there is one story of Mo'okinihea where my crystal activated. I said, well, what's the story? And the story was that a guy came on a whale, parked his whale at the edge of the ocean front, and then told everybody to go from Pololu Valley 10 miles to this Mo'okinihea and go from hand to hand, handing these boulders over to make this big 600 by 400 foot heiau. And so I said, well, if the guy came on a whale, he wasn't from here, right? I mean, who traveled on a whale? It was canoe, right? Back in the day, it was all over the ocean. But this guy came on a whale. Kind of reminds me of Jonah, right?
Right, right.
And for 3 days, he got spit out somewhere. Sounds like it was a UFO who let their, let their walkway out. And here he got spit out. I think he walked out like a USO, a submersible. So I think Jesus may have traveled the same way. And who would listen to a white guy unless they trusted him? So I believe that it was Jesus and also Quetzalcoatl who taught the cultures, agriculture, technology, mathematics, and civilization, how to have a society. And in Hawaii, we have the ahupua'a, which is the ecosystem of having communities from the ocean to the mountain. So,
Interesting. I wanted to say real quick, like I've heard, the idea that, Jesus coming to America is also found in like the Mormon tradition, and he's also conflated sometimes with Quetzalcoatl, like you were mentioning, of like the South American and Central American um, peoples, right? And in Lono being, described as a white guy, and Quetzalcoatl and being described as a white guy. I've heard that, and I've heard a lot of like commentators kind of like comment and be like, oh, it's, that proves like a European person. But I've always argued that um, you could have the blue or green eyes and the blonde or reddish hair, those phenotypes, and still be like a mixed race person, have like more melanated skin. And I've written a blog post about this, and like you see it actually in, you know what I mean, like Fiji and the Samoa Islands and um, New Zealand, even the Waka
Taha,
the
yeah.
Waka blondes, right? And even like in
Mm-hmm,
Hawaii, they
mm-hmm.
say Ehu hair, right? It's like
Yeah.
that. So it's like that phenotype can come in even melanated people, right? Of having the.
Mm-hmm.
So my theory personally is that Jesus, Quetzalcoatl, they could have been, you know what I mean, like Caucasian skin. They could have been, but it's also plausible that they were, more melanated person, but they still had the blonde or red hair phenotype with the blue or green eyes. But the reason they were called white was more so because they always wore white, like the Essenes and the Druids, which I think is like, and the Pythagoreans, when you look at like Jesus and his group, they were associated with like the Essenes, the Nazarenes, the Pythagoreans, even like compared to like the Druids, and even the Egyptian priesthood often wore white as well. So like I'm thinking that when this great being came traveling, he may have had really light skin, and he probably was mixed race, maybe, because I'm thinking Jesus was of a mixed race anyways. So he could have been like a lighter skin, but he might have had that red or blonde hair and the blue or the green eyes, but that he wore white, and his whole like entourage all wore white. And so that's maybe where, that association is coming from. That's just my thoughts.
Well, what's interesting is you talk about the different hair colors and the different types of mixtures in indigenous cultures. My hair is an auburn color, naturally very, very dark. So it's interesting how it's red, they're very, very, very dark red. And so I totally agree with you. But I also agree or think that there were many of races because there were more couples. There were 7 couples of Elohim that came from the heaven to earth. I believe they came from Sirius, which is supposedly where Jesus came from. He was a Syrian. Pleiades, which is more of the Menehune Hawaiian dark skin. Also, like the Africans, when the continents were closer together, supposedly Africa, um, they have history of being also from Sirius, and their religious, what do you call it, tribal history talks about the Sirius A, Sirius B, and Sirius C, and they didn't have technology. So they may have known that there were different species of races that came and seeded the planet. So I believe that's where we may have the different cultures and the different bloodlines and different races. Like you said, in New Zealand, I think it's the Waitaha, where they have that ehu or the blonde Polynesians. Yeah.
Right.
I knew my friend on Molokai. He was, and he had ehu hair and very light skin, beautiful, different from his family. His family was all dark skin, dark eyes, everything was dark black, you know. He was all blonde and brown, you know, light brown skin. So there may be a genetic memory in that group. So that makes more sense to me than us being one. I think we were like a bunch of different types of star beings
Right.
that lived in Lemuria.
I agree 100%. Have you seen this book before?
Should I go to the right?
Can you see on the screen?
There it is. Yes.
So this book was written by His Hawaiian Majesty King Kalakaua, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about all the ancient Hawaiian myths and legends, the history of the Hawaiian people, and a lot of the stories. Well, what's interesting is at the very beginning of the book, he talks about how the Hawaiians, the royal families from Hawaii, were actually Kushites that came from Asia Minor, and they eventually came to the Hawaiian Islands or something. That in that there was a belief, you know, amongst the Hawaiian royalty that they were, you know what I mean, one of the tribes of Israel. Basically, that's what he was implying, that the royal Hawaiian people were one of the 12 tribes of Israel, and they were one of the royal tribes, and that's why they were, you know, kings in a sense like that, and they were like the gods mixed in with like this ancient uh, king slash priesthood, priest kings, basically. What do you think about that?
That makes sense to me, yeah. Because Hawaii currently has its own nation. I don't know if you remember back in, I don't know, 1980s or something. Bill Clinton, President Clinton at the time, had apologized for the illegal occupation of Hawaii, and renounced the Kingdom of Hawaii as a legitimate nation. And recently, and maybe the last year, I heard that when we go into this Golden Jubilee, that Hawaii will have it be its own nation state, which leads me to believe that Hawaii is one of the main, what do you call it? Main indigenous power, like PowerPoints,
Power players,
you know, capitals.
Power players.
Yeah, like one of the main, you know, like Russia, America, we're all like big power forces, China, that Hawaii is going to have its own governance. And it says it in the Secrets and Mysteries of Hawaii book, I believe, that Hawaii in the future will be one of the main forms of government on this earth. And I believe it to be true because we have what's called the Aloha Spirit Law. And I don't know if I had sent that to you, but I'll send you a picture of it.
No, you didn't send that.
Okay. I give it to all of my clients because it is a law that is currently used today. It's a Hawaii revised statute, so we all have to live by these terms, and I give it to my clients, especially the ones that come here from the mainland and they have a little bit of a difficulty integrating into the Hawaiian culture. And it's because they don't understand the laws. And so I just sent it to you.
Yeah, it's up
The
here.
Aloha Spirit Law is, I believe, what we're going to be using to govern into the future. And it talks about kindness, tenderness, unity, harmony, pleasantness, agreeable, humility, modesty, patience, perseverance. And I highlights, the parts that I wanted people to know, but emoting good feelings to others. It says each person must think and emote good feelings to others. And then toward the bottom middle, says aloha means a mutual regard and affection and extends warmth and caring with no obligation in return. Aloha is the essence of relationships in which each person is important to every other person for collective existence. And then this part really floors me. Aloha means to hear what is not said, to see what cannot be seen, and to know the unknowable.
Wow.
I mean, how can you see what can't be seen? That's so deep.
Right.
And this is what the Hawaiians, live by. And this is why I share it with my clients, because who in any nation or state has a law based on love, based on emoting good feelings? This is so rare. And yet, as a realtor, it protects me, because when someone's disrespecting me or talking anything other than loving and happy and positive, I just give them this law, and then they usually kind of calm down. Sometimes if they're not from this country, then they don't understand and they will keep pressing. But it gives me a right to speak up, because I say I demand, I deserve respect, and it's the law. And also, I used it in court. And
Wow.
at the time, there was a Mormon bishop that was the judge in Kona. And he ended up recusing himself or removing himself from all 4 of my cases, because I called him out on discriminating against me. And I used this law. I did all my paperwork pro se and put this law everywhere that I could. And he removed himself from all of my cases. So what I tell my clients is, the love that you give protects you. This love that you give will also protect your car, your family, your property, your home, the area around you. And what we learn now we're going back to Hawaii and this particular island, and living on an island with a live volcano. The way to protect yourself from living on an island with a live volcano is that you treat everyone as if everyone were Jesus or Pele or God. And when you do, the legend was that if a woman, old lady, young lady, could be even a white dog, Pele would shapeshift. Pele is the goddess of the volcano. And if she came to your house, you would offer her food, drink, take a break, take a nap if you need. And then she would say thank you. And when she goes to leave, your house is protected. So she would go to the next house, and the people would slam the door on her. And okay. So the people would, close the door on her. And then Pele would remember. So when the lava would flow and she would come, Pele would flow down the hill, that she would miss the property of the people who loved her and cared for her. And row right over the property where they slammed the door on her. And you can see this energy today in Puna, where lava will come down the hill and go latitude the same elevation, straight line, and then go down a driveway, and then miss the people that she really liked, and then go straight for a house that was a rental and overtake it. And then you can see the lava try to go uphill. And then she remembered that she liked the guy that she missed and go down the hill. And there are a lot of legends which we can share, but aloha is an energy that protects you beyond yourself. And this is why sharing of the fruit from your yard, the goodness of your heart, giving your neighbors or your friends or your loved ones more than you would give yourself in terms of the energy of things that you want, you give it to them. That energy protects your property and your place and your destiny. So I believe that aloha is part of this ancient Elohim culture, because from what I know, besides that book that you pointed out from King Kalakaua, all the other books talk about battles and fights and wars and you know, and that's not aloha. I said, where's the aloha? So it's a little bit older than the aloha, than the Hawaiian culture.
Interesting. So, what do you think the Hawaiians and the Lemurians used the pyramids for?
Well, some of them were used for to, like, the cave system may have been part of a pyramid that got, you know, like a ziggurat. Who knows what those fossilized trees really were? So it could be a couple of different things. It may have been a portal or a place where it was like a sacred sanctuary. I think it was older than the Hawaiians, because the Hawaiians didn't build that kind of architecture. But they may have used the energy, like out at Punalu'u. If you go to the complex that's on the other side where the boat ramp was, you'll see, if you go up there, and I would only go up there if you take an offering, because what we know about the Hawaiians, and this is the Hawaiian culture, is that they believe that every spirit that's ever existed still exists. So technically, the Hawaiians that live there still live there. So when you go there, the indigenous custom of never coming empty-handed still plays its role. So when you go there, and when I took pila there, I took mangoes, I took beef jerky, I took whatever I could, and left it at the wall there, and then entered the complex, so that no spirits would follow me home. They would go to the food and be grateful. Very similar to some of the places that when your car stops on the side of the road and you had pork in your car or some kind of food, and you throw the food out, it was because the spirits were hungry. And so they'll let you go because you fed them. So same thing with the Hawaiian places, if you leave an offering. Anyways, if you go up to that complex, you'll go to the ocean and look up at the mountain, and you'll see that pyramid. It aligns with that complex. So did they know? Possibly. They probably knew that there was some kind of energy. But did they ever? All of their the culture was not written. It was always handed down like Native American. They didn't write anything, so it's hard to tell. It's hard to find anything Hawaiian online, but I do believe that they knew about that pyramid. And I think my great grandfather was a steward of the area. Yeah, and knew about the pyramids too.
Hmm. I actually had a friend, have a friend, sorry. I used to work with her. Her name is Eileen, and she told me about a kahuna, an elderly Hawaiian man who grew up down in the Punaluu area in Ka'u, and he was told by his family to go to one of those pyramids, um, and he apparently did some sort of like chanting and like that same thing that you're describing about like hearing the waterfall, like she described like him going there and it like some sort of like activation type of thing happened. And she said that this same man was known, or he told her at least, that he would go up to Mauna Kea and he would have visitations from the Manahuni there, the Manahuni, and they would teach him things about herbs and future events going on in like the world situation, things like that, and as well as like local cures and things like that that he could do. And I was just like always blown away by that story.
There's stories, and this is why I believe this information is true, because the people who tell me these stories are not all Hawaiian. In fact, there was one young white guy who came from like California. He was like a master diver for Jack's Dive Locker. And this was at the time when I guess cell phones weren't really like popular. And I remember him telling me the story. The first time he came here, he had to hitchhike up to Kaloko. And it was dark and he didn't have his light and he fell in a ditch. And then he saw a line of torches running down like this, zigzag, down the mountain, like, and all he could see was a line of torches running. And so he was like, "Is that my welcoming party, or what was that?" So he finally gets to where he needs to go, and he's staying with a surfer guy, blonde surfer guy, and the guy tells him, "Take me to where you saw that." And when they went back to the place, it was straight like forest. It was very thick forest. And he said, "How can you have seen that?" So that was one incident. Then he goes down to Lyman's Bay, and he apparently tried to get in the water there and he got his foot cut really bad. So he's staying at the side of the road on Ali'i Drive, and he says a guy comes out of the bushes from the mountainside, which there's a huge complex there of where the kahuna trained, and there was a queen who lived there, Keala Nahihi. Anyways, this guy almost looks Micronesian, but he's like a, short brown skin guy, crosses the street, climbs up the coconut tree, grabs a coconut, comes back down, peels the coconut, mixes it in his hand with the husk and the dirt and spit and all the stuff, and he puts it in his hand and he puts it on the guy's foot. The guy doesn't even know him, right? White guy from the mainland, right? Young guy. And he's like, "What happened? Like, who is this guy?" I said, "I think the guy is like a Menehune. And you must be royalty for him to come out of the bushes and not even ask you and know that you're hurting and give you this medicine. Who would do that, right?" So this was a sign to me that, of course, people are being called here, and that when they're called here, phenomena like this happens to them. That's the only way I can describe it, and how I can believe in the stories, because there's numerous stories like that. But when you hear from different like tourist people, it's like, oh, okay, well, why would you lie to me about something so specific?
Wow. That's a crazy, amazing story. I love that one. Um, Couple more questions for you. We've been going for quite some time, and people are loving this in the comments. People are really loving this. Um, so thank you, Claire, for doing this tonight.
Awesome.
This has been super awesome, and I know we're
Yes.
gonna get a lot of people. This is streaming on three different channels right now. We're on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. So we got people like
Awesome.
watching on all different platforms. And if you have any questions for Claire before we go, be sure to type them now in the comments, and I'll be sure to ask her before we log off here. But um, did Lemuria sink?
Yes, Lemuria did sink. Um, Supposedly, Lemuria sank in one night. What happened was they knew that the the plates were shifting. There was a pole shift, and they knew that there was some kind of cataclysm that was going to happen. So they started preparing. They started putting the energy, the memories of the civilization into the crystals. And then they also tried to prepare by going to California, and particularly Mount Shasta. And they had asked the people inside of Mount Shasta, which is called Telos, the inner city of Mount Shasta is called Telos. And they asked the Telosians if they could build for the coming cataclysm, and that we would probably have about 1 million refugees coming from Lemuria to inhabit the part of Telos where they were requesting to build. So they did build it out, and but what happened was when the deluge or the flood came, there was no warning. And I don't know if you remember, was it last January? The water rose. There was no waves. The water just rose. We didn't have a tsunami warning. And I believe this was what happened back then. So the water rose. The only people that were awake at the time, because it happened in the morning or the late evening, which was exactly what happened in January. About 1:30, the water started to raise at the Kailua Pier where the seawall is. It was just cresting over and starting to cascade over. And I believe this was what happened in the times of Lemuria. Everyone was sleeping. Only the priests and the people who were holding the space in the music, the musicians and the priesthood were awake, and they prayed that all the souls would be lifted. And in the beginning of my presentation, I talk about Halloween. Halloween and All Souls Night and Dios de los Muertos recognizes the night of Lemuria's sinking, but they turned it into the opposite, like the dark night instead of the night when everyone left the plane and went up to the Pleiades. So I believe that they knew that, and something happened where they told the energy of the spirits to go back toward the Pleiades, and that there was a time when they would return. I believe that's what's happening now. And like you and me and many others who come to Hawaii and they're like, I don't know why, but I just need to be here. This is home. I believe they're Lemurians being called back to Lemuria. So yes, Lemuria sank. Everyone died except maybe 25,000 who ended up moving on to Telos, and then Atlantis. Because Lemuria was a spiritual community or civilization, and they were more 5D than 3D, they were able to transition a little easier. However, in Atlantis, they were more of a violent deluge where there were fires and volcanoes and tsunamis and hurricanes and all kinds of little bit more devastation. But their energy was different too. They were more of a suppressive civilization. Lemuria was more like loving, and it was their time to go. And there was a prayer that was said, and there's the song Auld Lang Syne. You know that song, Auld Lang Syne? May all acquaintance be forgot. La 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 la. May all acquaintance be forgot. Da, 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 da. Da,
Oh
da.
yeah, yeah.
And it's like a Russian or some kind of like English or Druid kind of song.
Hmm.
That song commemorates Lemuria.
Wow.
And in Hawaii, we say ahui ho. That is another saying that says until we meet again, because we knew that the spirits who passed on would return. So,
You'll have to send me that song afterwards.
okay.
Yeah, I definitely want to hear that. Um, we got a question here for you. Is the sinking of Lemuria related to like the flood story? Like,
Yes. There
like
were many floods. There were at least 5 floods. And, when they talk about like the Bronze Age, Iron Age, well, they took out the part about the Stone Age. And um, there's also one cyclops, cycloptic age. And there were giant one-eyed beings with their third eye open. That's how they walked. And they were giants, kind of like Jack and the Beanstalk, but with one eye. Cycloptic. You'll see cycloptic architecture. And that's the giants, when the giants resided. And I don't know if I sent you a picture, but I sent you a picture of a sleeping giant on Oahu, Kauai. There are sleeping giants all over the world. And this is how I found out. Wait, you asked me about Lemuria um, being, what was the question again?
uh, about like the is the sinking of Lemuria related to the biblical flood story?
Yes. Well, I don't know if they were talking about that particular flood story, because there were different floods, like I mentioned, with the Stone Age. What happened in the Stone Age was all the giants turned to stone, and now there are sleeping giant mountains or fossilized
I
giants.
I just pulled up the sleeping giant picture in Kauai.
Yeah. Okay. So
That's cool. Wow.
I've seen them. I've studied them on YouTube. You can study sleeping giants. But I believe there were many. And I've seen them on Oahu, on Kauai. And it looks like people are like lying down, but you can see kind of like the head and the feet.
Right.
When you study Lemuria on YouTube, there'll be like fossilized elephants, fossilized you'll see some fossilized giants. And I believe that one of the floods did occur at the time of the Stone Age, which covered the giants, like it immediately like froze them. So it may have been a flood, but it may have also been like from the sky, like a cosmos like dust that came and the flood came and washed everything, and then the ashes came and settled on the civilization, and then we have another layer of a time, and then it builds upon itself. So like in France, I think maybe it's Italy. Anyways, in those ancient cultures, like when the Essenes, I believe the Vatican is built 13 stories above an ancient civilization that is buried underground. And this is what they now call the tunnel system. See, at some point in the past, it was a civilization that may have been above ground that flooded over. So there were different layers of floods. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Uh, is since Lemuria did sink, and it is like the basically the mountain tops of a continent, right? And like it's like the highest mountains in the world, right? Like Haleakala and Mauna Kea are like higher than like Mount Everest in the Himalayas. It's just that the majority of the landmass is under sea, right? So is Lemuria rising? Is that part of the prophecy? Like, what's up with that?
Yes. So the prophecy is that Lemuria is rising. And at the time, which is now, we just entered, I believe, the age of Aquarius and left the age of Pisces. That this was the time that the continents would shift. There was supposed to be some kind of pole shift. However, with the prophecy being, what do you call it, coming to fruition now, it sounds like it's more of a connection with us, with our extraterrestrial family, that yes, the earth is changing, but we are changing as well. So as the tectonic plates move and shift, and people start to like migrate to like higher ground, or like people coming even to Hawaii. Like, why would you come to Hawaii in the middle of the Pacific? Some people know intuitively that the energy of this Pacific plate is moving this way. So I don't know. I mean, to me, that looks like two parts kind of moving together this way. But what it's saying is the ring of fire is letting go and going to start to go underwater to bring this part up. So Lemuria rising, we may see more pyramids, but because the seafloor goes down 13,000 feet, our drinking water right now may be, in essence, waterfalls that are underwater. And so when it goes down to, 14,000 or 13,000 feet to the seafloor, we may see the water that we drink as, cascading off a mountain. So I do believe that it's, it's down under. And I do believe that there are pyramids there underwater still.
That's cool that you say that because, like, right now I'm showing an image on the screen and it has like underwater pyramids, and the tops are like the Hawaiian uh, mountain tops, or like
Yeah.
little like island tops in the water, basically.
Yeah. They're like top plateau tops, right?
Right, right.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I
Sweet.
mean, it's all been hidden from us. This was just because of my intrigue with, studying UFOs. I do believe that even the Hawaiians saw UFOs. I've seen UFOs flying out of Waipio Valley. So they are our ancient family. And I believe that if you look at places like Mesa, California, off the coast there's actually a military base there. But if you Google it and you look down into it, I think I had a picture of it, but I don't know if it's in this presentation, but it shows a plateau and then below pillars, like in ancient, like Olympia, like there's like about 8 huge pillars. And when you look at it, I mean, those pillars have to be like at least, 1,000 feet tall or something. It's just crazy. Hi, baby.
You see the kid? We got a. Whoa. Oops, Siri opened up when we said, "Hey, kitty." I got.
Sorry.
We got a question here from Foxy Roxy. She wants to know, is there an estimate on how many periods there are in the island chain? I'm not sure what she means, but
They don't really talk about the time before the Hawaiians. It's all hidden knowledge. So there may be a recording of different ages but never, it was never something that was recorded, except in the chants, like the local, or excuse me, the Kumulipo, which is the chant of creation. And it talks about how the plants are created, and the the food systems, and the stars. And so I don't know if it records another time before, except that there is some history of Mu. And how I came across the name Lemuria was walking past the Hawaiian Studies class in high school, and he said the name Lemuria, and I thought, how can you have an American name in a Hawaiian Studies class? So it may have been revealed, but it was all word of mouth, and I don't think they have. If they do, it's very secret, because they're older heiaus than heiaus, meaning altars or temples that are older than the Hawaiian complexes. So some of them, they're all scattered. But like I said, the history of the Mo'okini, Kua Mo'o Mo'okini heiau, is about the guy who came on a whale. So that, to me, is one era. And then you have the era of the Menehune and the fish ponds, and supposedly the overthrowing of the island by King Kamehameha. When he went to Molokai, for instance, there were a lot of Menehune, or dwarfs. They were mystical, and they used levitation to create the pyramids. And they chanted protection over their island. And Kamehameha was never able to land. And then he said, I want to come to the island. And they said, well, if you come to the island, you're only going to come in peace. There will be no bloodshed. And so then he agreed. And that was the beginning of the integration of the Hawaiian Tahitian with the Menehune. So I think that also marks one era where the Menehune were one civilization, and then the Hawaiians and then the Tahitian Hawaiians were different, eras. But that's all I know. And again, I'm coming from the white side of Hawaiian history.
No, wow, that's pretty amazing. I haven't heard that part about the Molokai. I did actually recall like hearing about them chanting and him not able to like land on the island. They had this like super powerful, like almost like a mantra type chanting, almost, right? And it was like vibrational, and almost like the idea that they built or levitated physical objects with like the power of sound, right?
Well, we never talked about this, but I did want to mention, because that same energy was used in the Dragon's Triangle. Have you heard of it?
No.
The Dragon's Triangle? Okay, there's the Bermuda Triangle, which is in the Atlantic Ocean. In the Japanese Ocean, we have the Dragon's Triangle, and it's near Japan, near this monument. And there was a story, it was part of their history, where Mongolia was trying to overtake Japan. But Japan, they have a bunch of shrines, and they're very spiritual. And they kind of remind me of like white Menehunis, like white Asian Menehunis, right? We're all connected. So they also prayed, and the Mongolians were never able to land because they got sucked into that Dragon's Triangle. The wind held them off, the storms, everything caused the Mongolians to turn back and never were able to overtake Japan. So
interesting.
There's a lot of history
how about this
that we don't know about.
So we talked about the red-headed giants, right? What about the leprechauns, the Irish leprechauns, and like them being like these little people, and Hawaii being like the land of rainbows, right? And it's
Mhm.
monatomic gold is found here. So there must be some sort of connection, like with the Menehune and the leprechauns and the Celtic, Scottish, maybe like Nordic, who knows, or like phenotypes somehow crossing maybe back in the day, like the Waka Blondes of New Zealand. Some of them believe that their ancestry is like Middle Eastern and like Celtic or something, and
Mhm.
so maybe there's, um,
Oh, absolutely.
that whole
I totally connect with the Celtic and Stonehenge and um, Rosslyn Chapel, the Knights Templar, Essenes, right? Um, we have Kauai. There is a civilization of Menehune. I don't know if they're still there, but there is a little civilization. And then, of course, we have what? Hobbits, gnomes, dwarfs,
right,
leprechauns,
right.
Menehune, right? They were all over the world.
It's
They're just like in different cultures. Now, I don't know if you ever subscribe to Gaia, but there's a story. It's a film on a guy in New Zealand who makes these elaborate. They're called fairy homes. Beautiful, like lodge looking homes, all detailed with the little kitchen and the little fireplace and the chimney with those cobblestone rocks. And I mean, they elaborate these places. And I'm thinking, why would you put so much effort into this little house? It's like not even a Barbie house, littler than that. And at the end of the video, at the end, after the credits, she shows the deleted scenes. And one is a picture. She has her cell phone and she's at a selfie looking at the forest behind her. And you see this little spark of light and they zoom into it and it shows two little illuminated guys. They look like they have wings and they pop in and pop out like this. And it's like, that's who they're building the little lodges for.
mm-hmm.
And then I was told in that they're like little blue people, and that's the Smurfs. So you know what I mean? They're
Right,
like it's all relative.
right.
It's just hidden.
Makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I
totally
mean,
makes sense.
it makes a lot of sense, and it seems to me that like the leprechaun and the Menehune, like these stories about them being mystical, magical beings, it has some sort of there's truth to it. There's some sort of history, some ancestry there that either we're part of or they're like a human type of being. Who knows? Like they're related to us. Maybe they're, you know what I mean, a different species or alien race altogether. Like, or star seed, however you want to see it. It actually makes me also think of, what was it? Oh shoot, I'm totally spacing it now. Leprechauns, Menehune, and I'm totally forgetting now.
Dwarfs, gnomes, dwarfs. There was Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, right?
Well, right, that's like I've heard that's related to like the Pleiades and the seven dwarves are, the Pleiades stars, the star cluster.
I relate a lot of our mysticism to Disney movies. And Snow White, I don't know if it was her, but in the beginning of the movie where it shows like a beautiful day and like, I don't, was it, maybe it's Cinderella, where she wakes up and all the birds are chirping and they start doing her work for her, hanging her clothes and sweeping for her and making her food and she's just walking and it's a beautiful day and all these things are being done for her. And then I believe that that's how we were supposed to be, that we were enlightened beings who had this energy that exuded where the world would just lay out in front of us, kind of like the movie Moana, where she was like when she goes down to the ocean and the wave is like talking, like communicating with her, and it like pushes her back when she's walking toward the ocean. Very similar to how us in nature, and the nature beings, right? The elementals. I believe those hobbits were part of the earth beings, right? There was an earth, they may have been original species from earth, and then there were alien beings who came and modified the genes. So I believe there were all the fairy tale creatures lived here all at once, and we were all a part of it.
Yes. Actually, now I remember what I was going to say. Thank you. You actually helped me remember. Um, so there's a theory, there's a lot of movies, documentaries about Bigfoot, right? And people like going and looking for Bigfoot and everything. But there's a newer one that I recently saw, and they posited the theory that Bigfoot is actually like an interdimensional being, right? And that he's able to basically appear if he wants to, but he can disappear and like he exists like between dimensions, and if he chooses he can appear to us on this physical realm, but if he wants to he's existing on another parallel universe kind of. And it kind of makes me think about like the leprechauns and the Menehune. There's this idea that they still live here in these islands. It's just that you have to um, they have to allow themselves to be seen, or you have to tune into their frequency, almost like the man building the little fairy houses. By making that intention, by doing that act, you're actually tuning into the frequency of the elementals, the fairies, like that. And if they choose, they'll reveal themselves. And it's the same idea of maybe like a unicorn. They exist, but you have to like they exist interdimensionally. So either they choose to reveal themselves, or you have to tune in to that frequency to be able to get a vision. And it makes me also think about, like, say people that want to like swim with dolphins or whatever, or make a dolphin or a whale connection. And it's like the dolphins and the whales, they have, what I mean, those higher spiritual sensitivities. And if they feel like your energy is off, they're not going to come near you, right? But if they sense somebody that's more like in tune, more sensitive spiritually, they want to come interact with that human, right? And it gets back to the idea of like, also, you may have heard of this, the aquatic ape theory. It goes against a little bit like the Darwin theory of us being more related to apes, rather that we're more related to dolphins and whales, because like dolphins and whales will float in the water, whereas monkeys, apes, chimpanzees, they're not floating. We're more like bare skin with little hair, as opposed to like the monkeys and the bears, right? We're born with these like little blowholes on the top of our head, which is similar to the dolphins and whales, the way they have their blowhole. And then we're
right?
also able to learn multiple languages, right? And learn music, which the only other species that's able to do that is dolphins and whales. They learn different languages. They can, because they can travel on their migration, and they can learn a song from a different pod, and they'll learn that song and take it with them and teach it to other pods even, right? And they send telepathic messages to each other, right? They use sonar to be able to send visual images. And us humans, we're also able to send and receive images, telepathic images, have psychic abilities, but most of us just haven't tapped into it or honed it, right? And learned how to use it. So the idea is that we're more related actually to apes. I mean, more related to dolphins and whales, being the aquatic apes that we are. And it gets again back to the idea of like mermen and mermaids, right? That at one point our ancestors were like kind of like the
Homo mermanus.
the new Black Panther movie, right? We were, and then eventually we started walking on land, right? And we forgot how to swim, how to change back into our mermaid selves. And that's why we're so drawn to dolphins, maybe, is because, and the idea of mermaids is because it's like a memory. We actually kind of remember it.
Oh, a lot of people that come here and call this place home, um, some of them say that they don't really feel the energy until they get in the ocean.
Mm.
And to me, that's a sign of a mermaid quality. Um,
Wow.
I was never really connected to the ocean, but I feel like I'm a river mermaid or a freshwater mermaid because I like seeing the ocean, the floor, and I like freshwater versus saltwater, but I like being on land. Um, I may have drowned in the past life, which makes me believe that I may have been involved when Lemuria sank because that cellular energy may still be inside of me. So I have a little bit of I, I'm I'm closer to freshwater than I am to the open ocean. Um, and so I think that is part of the memory and remembering who you are and what attracts you. Like you said, um, if people are attracted to the ocean, to me they're more Lemurian. And then for most people have to see the ocean who come to Hawaii, they're like, I just want an ocean view and I'll be fine. I don't need to live near the ocean. I just want to see it. That to me is also a sign of a
Right.
Lemurian.
Right.
Um, so is is that what you're thinking was what
Yes, yes. I mean,
you may
definitely
be
that
called
that we're
to?
being called, I mean, from that book, you brought up that book earlier, The Secrets and Mysteries of Hawaii, and I read that book before ever coming to this island. I actually had been to Hawaii before, and I lived in Hawaii, Maui, many years ago, and I first came across that book when I was in Maui, and I end up getting a copy and I've read that book so many times at this point, but part of the reason why I was so drawn to moving here was because of that book. And in that book, it talks about multiple people that Pila would come across, totally unrelated to each other, who had had the same sort of experience or vision of being drawn or called to the Big Island, and also seeing a vision where in the future Hawaii was like kind of what you were describing earlier, like one of the spiritual capitals of the world, the future golden age, right? And that all the different islands would become once again like what they used to have been, these initiation centers, and that you would find healing temples and retreat centers and sanctuaries all over the islands, and you can already see that happening. Hawaii is definitely known for like place to come for a retreat and like have a healing ceremony and things like that. Like people definitely come to kind of relax and uh, to unplug, right, and kind of tap into like nature and like the free spirit of themselves and like that. So I definitely think that this is why Hawaii is, why it triggers our imagination, why it calls to us. Pila mentions, and I know if I've experienced this, and ever since I heard this, I've asked many people if this is their experience, and every single person that I've talked to said the same thing. Like when you come to Hawaii for the first time, or when you come back after being away from a while, you as soon as you land, you feel a sense of like peace, shanti, right? And then when you leave, like say you come for your first time just for a week or whatever, and then when you're first getting here, you're like and then by like day 4, you're like, oh shit, I'm running out of time. This is about to end so quick. And like when they take off and leave the island, there's like a sense of like the heart feeling like longing to stay, right? And then for the next year, they're just like in their mind they imagine Hawaii, and it holds
Coming
this
back.
place of like beauty and vibration, and they just feel called back, like once they've touched down here. And then when they do, when they finally actually do come back, it's that same experience when they land of like, peace. And I know for myself that every time I leave the island, like I feel a little tiny little bit of like anxiety, right? And then when I come back, it's always like, peace, I'm back, I'm here, I
I
made
think
it.
that's the Elohim temple of peace that you feel
Yeah,
coming home. That you
definitely.
lived here before, and that was you resided in the Elohim temple of peace.
Yes.
Yeah. I will say, and I know we should probably,
Yeah,
start to
we'll wrap it
close
up.
it out, but this might be for your next session that, we talked about how to prepare your energy for Lemuria rising and this golden age that is upon us now, and it being 5-dimensional, and how I feel like our bodies are turning crystalline. I believe that the revelation or the revealing of all of this information is coming to us now because it's giving us that ability, or maybe the knowledge that our bodies are more than just physical. They're actually, of course, we're spiritual beings in physical bodies, right? And that mastering the chakras and how they, I call it spark or fire off to create and manifest here on this 3D plane, is the mastery that we are here to kind of prepare ourselves for. I was told through the different prophecies that the alien species from space that had come from heaven down to earth, part of who were peace and aloha, and of course the Pleiades and Syrians and Arcturians and all those other peoples, they have the earth under quarantine, and they're waiting for the beings of earth to higher, to elevate their energy. I think naturally the cosmos is giving us energy to ascend, but that we have a work to do to lighten our physical bodies through our spiritual practice. And part of that, to me, is lining up the chakras and learning how to fire off the chakras daily. I call it a practice of kimochi. It may be in the American term called orgone, or the orgasm, but the orgone energy. And I bought you a pyramid as your closing gift because I wanted you to see what this information was that I was studying about the sacred geometry of your body in a pyramid. So when you can understand how your body works, and of course we have our blowhole, which is the Hawaiians would actually blow air or ha into that crown chakra, and that's how we received energy. When you practice the sacred, I call it chakra sparking or kimochi, which is the art of like feeling good to the point where you send these blissful thoughts up through your chakra into the heavens, that what God said about giving God the desires of your heart, and God will give you all that your heart desires, is through this alignment of the chakras. And so I would hope that people would want to study more of their essence and why they're here, what they're here to do. And then for the biggest part is how to manifest with their physical body. And to me, that has to do with that regimen of using that orgasm energy daily. Because as the Bible tells us in the hidden realms, that there is a temple, right? The temple's inside of you. You are the church where God resides. And so when you talk to God, which is in essence you bring up the chakras, kind of like brushing your teeth. It's daily regimen. You do it daily. And I promise you, you will see your world align to a more golden, more prosperous world just by doing that daily. And Sakshi, you are part of my golden experience, my golden future, right? It's happening now for me. So I appreciate you and thank you so much for
Aw.
giving me this time to share.
Thank you, Claire. Oh my God, you shared so many golden nuggets, so many rainbow bursts of like wisdom, like some diamonds that just we're just gonna be anointing our crown chakras with, and putting on our crowns and our vests and
Put
our
on your
holy
crowns.
robes, and just gonna
Take
be
your place.
we're gonna wear our royal vestments and walk proudly as Lemurian nationals. You know what I mean?
Well, what happens when you start to learn this information is that when you arrive, they're prepared for you. So that's what I want for you. And I know you're the royalty that God sent you here to be. So thank you so much for
Thank you.
being in your place.
Thank you for sharing this amazing information with us. And I never knew the part about the Hawaiians blowing into the crown chakra like that. That's actually blowing my mind, actually.
Well, we might have to have more sessions just to kind of get into it more in detail. But
You know,
yeah,
in the yoga tradition, they call it Shakti pot, and
right.
there'll be gurus will they'll sometimes like pop you right on the top of the crown chakra, and like people go into like ecstatic states and they experience Kundalini rising. So I imagine it's pretty much the same thing as like a Kahuna blowing into your crown chakra like that, filling you with the breath of life, right? Um, Another interesting parallel is like in Islam, the name of God is Allah, and the breath of God is Hu, Allahu, and the name that we say in Hawaii, Aloha,
Aloha.
Allahu, Aloha. It's like the breath Ha of Alo, right? The spirit and breath, right? And man, you just shared so many amazing things with us, Claire. Thank you so much. We have to get you back on. We're gonna like do some more discussions, right? We could probably talk like for the next 6-7 hours.
I know.
But thank you again, and I'm just gonna share a little bit with the people them about where they can find us and things like that. Um, so, do you have anywhere that you want people to follow you or anything like that? You want a website or a Facebook page? Anything you want
Yeah,
to
I'll
share?
give you the last page of this here. This is my end page, and it's just you can call me and you can find me on the Google. I've been a realtor since '99. Been in the business for longer than that. So you can just look up Claire Bajo on Google and click on any one of those. My phone number is 808-756-4874, and you're welcome to call me or text me. Being friends on Facebook. I do have a Lemuria page which I posted there. It's when I did that first presentation, Google Facebook didn't like it and canceled all of my accounts.
What?
But the Lemuria information is still up. So if you can get onto that page, Lemuria, the continent of Mu, you'll see a lot of my research there and a lot of the videos. If they're still on YouTube or wherever,
Okay.
they will be posted there because I had posted all of my research up until that point on that page. So
well, if you still have some of that stuff, we can do some more like special live streams, and I can help you, like edit some of that stuff ahead of time or help you get it back online or something like that. But we can't let them stop us, Claire.
Oh, we're just growing. We're growing from here.
We're just beginning, right? It's just
exactly.
They can't stop us, and they can't.
Well, they'll be gone soon.
Right.
These will be taken over by the white hats, and You know, the golden age was prophesied from the stars. So
The light
we're
beams
just
are here.
fulfilling, exactly. We're just fulfilling our part of the prophecy. So thank you again for showing up.
Oh, thank you. Well,
Appreciate you.
that's it for today, guys. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, turn on the notifications bell. And if you've enjoyed this, please share it with your friends and fam. On social media, please leave me a comment, review, it helps. Please also consider donating to the show, becoming a patron on Patreon, or a YouTube member. Be sure to follow Claire Bajo on Facebook. Her number's up on the screen right now. If you need help with being with finding a property, if you need a realtor, if you need some insight, some chakra attunement, some wisdom on some of these teachings that she shared with us tonight. She has so much wisdom and she's so accessible and helpful and willing to share with you. So don't be shy. Reach out to Claire. Reach out to me. Shoot me a message if you want to know anything at all. If you have any questions for us, if you have any ideas for future live streams like this. And stay tuned. We have lots more great content, interviews, stories, and more coming soon. And one more final question, Claire. What is your definition, or what does the Holy Grail mean to you?
To me, the Holy Grail is the last thing that I just shared. And something that I feel that Mary Magdalene and Jesus also were to share if they were left to be alive after, you know, in their lifetime. Um, I believe that the Holy Grail is buried in the element of Tantra and the element of love. And when you're at the highest level of love, mental, emotionally, physically, that you are practicing the art of the Holy Grail, which is you. So the essence, the Holy Grail, is that you are the Holy Grail and that God lives inside of you. And every time you give yourself bliss, you feel the Holy Grail. So
Wow.
that's
I love that. I love that. I have to agree with you on that. I think that's really where the heart of the mystery is, actually. So I hope you guys tuned in and paid close attention to what she just said. Okay, friends, always go for your dreams, never give up, and may the grail be with you.
Blessings.
Bless.
Thank you, Sakshi.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you for being here.
Blessings. Good
night, you guys.
Good night.